Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. So I'm doing a video. I'm not doing my skincare routine. I'm just gonna talk. So some of you guys by now have, especially those of you guys who are following me on social media, you guys have seen that I put out some new like plant information sheets for the farmers market. And so most of you probably know or suspected that I use ChatGPT for that. And so I wanted to talk about it, my decision to use ChatGPT, because I know it's a very controversial topic. And I mean, I hope this channel does grow, but I know some people have particular opinions about it, and maybe, and I know when you're a gardener, people tend to think that your views about environmental things should be specifically one thing. They don't allow for nuances and conversations. Anywho, and then there's just people who like to troll around the internet, criticizing people. And if you're one of those people, like, I'm just going to tell you right now, keep it respectful. See, here's the thing, like, you have the right to say whatever you want, but I have the right to delete your comment and ban you from, participating on my channel. And so I've done that to one person. And so just, keep it moving. Okay. Cause I am not about that kind of nonsense. So I have been using ChatGPT. You're going to see more in the videos that are coming up after this. You're definitely going to see it more, and you're going to see it. You've already seen it because I've changed the icon on this channel, and that's what I use to do it. And so I'm just going to address the issue. So I've seen a lot of arguments against AI use, and there's three. And I'm going to start with the least common issue first, because I feel like that should have been the biggest one. But, when you're using things like ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the other ones, or Claude is one of them, it's generative AI, meaning it's generating stuff. And so it requires a lot of data. So like those data centers that are going up in various places, they're trying to bring one into my state. It's causing environmental issues. Number one, I know at least in my state, there was incentives for the data centers because they use a lot of electricity, and they weren't paying their fair share of electric. And as a matter of fact, my governor just signed a bill, and basically now data centers have to pay for their usage. She's not putting that burden on taxpayers. And, I'm sure but it's not like I think we definitely need some regulation of like PSE&G, because, people like to make their money, and if they can't get it from one way, they'll try to repackage it in another. So I'm sure PSE&G is going to try it. But at the end of the day, the bill makes it very clear that data centers, you have to pay for your own power. And I've heard some conversations about they were supposed to generate their own power. I don't know if it's like windmills or solar or whatever, but I know that this latest heat wave with heat emergencies, I think one of the biggest things they did to relieve stress on the power grid was that the data centers kind of had to like dial back or like switch to alternative like power, like solar or something like that. That's my understanding. I didn't go whole hog into the research, but that's what I've seen in suggested in some of the articles. I could be wrong, didn't research it. I'm just telling you, this is what my very cursory research showed me. And of course, with data centers, they require water because they heat up, and, it's causing issues because it's, polluting people's drinking water. And so those are very serious concerns. And, if people's dislike of AI was related solely to the environmental, I would have no issue with that, because I'm concerned about that. The thing is, AI is here to stay. It's another jump forward in technology. We do have them from time to time, jumps in technology. And if we know that it's causing these issues, we need to be responsible and take measures to stop it. Because with certain uses of AI, certain things that, like, for example, with my job, like, I'm required to use AI. It's integrated into our system, so I can't just not use it. It's a job requirement. Seeing how that's, and especially because it can do some really amazing things. I don't think it's inappropriate that we use it. I just think we have to take all steps to, mitigate any damage that it's going to cause to our environment, because it's consuming a lot of resources. So that's my feeling on that. So I'm certainly sympathetic to that, and I think it's not right that we should be damaging our environment. But once again, that's not the big argument people make, which to me, I'm just like, okay, we're destroying people's drinking water, and like people, like, that's not complaints I'm generally hearing. The biggest one is that people are gonna lose their jobs. So here's the thing. Let me get some caffeine first. Is it going to make jobs obsolete? Absolutely. Some types of jobs, it's absolutely going to make obsolete. And as the technology progresses, especially because now we've got robots. I don't know if you guys saw on Instagram, I was posting clips of the little robot that was delivering food, things like that. And so, yeah, certain things are going to become obsolete. But when I hear people making this argument, number one, it seems like they're assuming, first off, it's just fear mongering. It's fear mongering, and it's fear mongering because they're not taking into consideration a couple things. Number one, they seem to think that, like, if you lose your job, you're never going to get another one. Yeah, are you going to have to retrain and do something else? Absolutely. But if every time something became obsolete, people lost their jobs, then, like, pretty much our entire society would be without a job. But things change, things progress, and people have to acquire new skills to stay current. You can't, like, for people who did typewriter, well, you can't just say, well, I'm not going to learn word processing, on a computer because, because basically everybody else is moving beyond you. They can do so much more, and you're still stuck in the Stone Age. People, as technology change, people adapt, and things change. And so that's the prevailing mentality, is that basically large swaths of the population are going to be unemployed, where when you look at what AI can do and can't do, that's just not the case. I mean, yes, lower level things like data entry, it can do, but, like, right now, like, if you're a plumber, yeah, AI is not replacing your job. If you're a brain surgeon, once again, AI is not replacing your job. If you're an attorney, you're going to use AI to assist you with doing certain tasks that would, like, for example, when I have medical record summaries. Yeah, sometimes I have 30 sets of medical records. There are times I have, like, 5,000 pages of medical records, and they got to get summarized. Yeah, if I did that by myself, it's going to take me weeks. And so, yes, using AI will shorten that process. But is it going to change, like, for example, legal analysis and that sort of thing? No, absolutely not. It's going to change that. So it's a tool. It's not going to a replacement for humans. The other thing is that people who use that argument don't take into consideration that this has been happening for, like, over 100 years. Okay. Back in the day, what did people have before refrigerators? They had ice boxes. So guess what? There was somebody whose job it was to get ice and deliver ice to places. So obviously with refrigerators, that stopped happening. That job is nobody does that job anymore. Okay. But that person had to move on to other things. Same thing with, like, cars. Back in the day, people used horses. Like, when you think about it, like, the amount of horses that are, like, I think just in, like, common use today is far lower than what it was in like the early 1900s, because people were still using horses and buggies. Like, everybody had horses. Like, everybody had them because that was the mode of transportation. Now, very few people have horses. More it's a hobby thing, a wealth thing. But cars came along and it made, like, horse and buggy obsolete. Now, here's the thing, with refrigerators, well, it created new jobs, because now you have refrigerator technicians, you have this, you have that related to dealing. I mean, first of all, somebody's got to make the refrigerator. So there's now, there's parts manufacturers, and just think about all the parts and components that make up the refrigerator. Somebody's got to produce those. So those were whole new fields that did not exist before refrigerators. Same thing with cars. Look at all the parts and pieces that have to go into cars. If you think about this whole tariff situation, you have like between Mexico, the US, and Canada, how often cars were crossing the border because this one factory was doing this, this next factory was doing this. So it's a whole industry making cars. And so it's created a whole lot of jobs. And so with AI, it's still in its infancy, we're still integrating it. And so, but there's going to be, AI itself is going to create jobs. So, there are going to be people who are going to be concentrating on things like, ethics and AI and, and quality control and all that other stuff. And not to mention AI is a program. So it's like any other, how often do you have to update your computer with the newest this, the newest that? Same thing with AI. So it's going to create additional industries. How far reaching it's going to become, I don't know. All I can tell you is that when technology changes, everything about it changes, and even if something becomes obsolete, it's going to create additional opportunities. And so let's just, let's be realistic about here. Technology changing is not a new thing. It's going to continue to change. Our society is going to, technology is going to continue to evolve, and our society is going to continue to evolve with it. Even things like central air, before people use window units. Now, if you have an old house, sometimes, you do have window units, but I also have mini splits. Mini splits are great because you don't have to have trunk lines. As a matter of fact, I've gotten estimates to put them all throughout the house. And I can tell you that doing that is a lot cheaper than basically adding trunk lines, because with trunk lines, I would have actually really needed to do a gut rehab to affect that, which would have been so much more expensive. So, and now with the mini splits, before it was just air conditioning. Now it's like air conditioning, it does heat. There's even a function, it was just comfortable, but it's just humid. I can do a dehumidifying thing. There's just a lot of options. And not to mention, each room is individually climate controlled. So if somebody likes it warmer, somebody likes it cooler, or you've got hot spots and cold spots in your house, you can use the mini split to adjust. So, and especially because I've got solar panels, I'm getting that savings, but it can make heating and cooling a lot more efficient, because for example, if I wanted to, I could only cool the room that I was in. I'm not saying I would necessarily do that, but even the winter, when it's cold, I could say, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to have the rest of the house, at night, let it get to 65 or whatnot. But in my bedroom, I'll have mine set to 68 so that I'm warmer, or 670 or whatever it is that temperature I want to be at. So, like I said, things change, things evolve, and society will evolve with it. And so, I don't see why we should limit technology, limit its progression over fear. There's a lot of things that, like I said, AI does and does very well. There's a lot of humans make errors there because of fatigue and some other things, distraction. If you need precise calculations, AI is going to be better than that. With the robot, we're getting robots, but I can see situations where it would be, there's a lot of risk to humans. Sending a robot in to do it instead of a human just makes better sense, because if something goes wrong, it's not a life that's being lost, or somebody being damaged, injured. If you damage a machine, you could, more likely than not, especially with physical damage, you're going to be able to fix it. And so it's just that there's certain things that it's going to benefit us. But so that's thing number 2. The last thing is with the artistic side, and I say this for last because this is what I used it for. And so a lot of people complain that, AI used copyrighted materials and copyrighted art to train, and these people didn't get paid for it. And what's the other thing? And it turns out designs that are soulless and lifeless and all this other stuff. So here's my whole thing. Okay, it's a computer program. So back when I was a little girl, and they were introducing like computer programming, like when I was like in third grade. The one thing I remember people saying is garbage in, garbage out. Okay, it can only get like, I know we call it artificial intelligence. It's not sentient. It can't think. You have to tell it. You have to tell it to do something. It doesn't do things independently of human input. And so if you're seeing designs, like, and don't get me wrong, I've certainly seen people who are like, oh, I'm redecorating my house, and what was produced didn't look that great. Well, guess what? It didn't look that great because the person who did it wasn't great at decorating, because it put in, they got out of it what they put in. So if you have a blank room and you've got white walls, and you simply tell it, I like this furniture, arrange it, that's all it's going to do. It's not going to design it for you. Now, if you say, hey, I want these color walls, I'm going for this overall aesthetic, and I would like this, and I would like pieces that can do it. Okay, then you're going to get something that looks a little different. But once again, you've put in a whole lot more information for it, to pull from. And the thing is, once it generates something, and then you tweak it until you get it to where you like it. So if you're seeing things that are blah, it's because that person's design was blah, not because AI did it. That's what the person did. It's just AI is rendering a concept of what you're suggesting is going to look like. The other thing is, like, when people say, oh, well, it used people's art to train. Okay, and like, what's the problem? As artists, like, trust me, as artists, how did you train? You train because you were copying other people's art. How many people are going to go to art museums? Like, I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen art students in museums sketching paintings by the greats and that sort of thing. That's how they learned. I mean, heck, I've seen people who have done their own like version copy of like Van Gogh paintings, and they turn around and sell them for a couple of $100. Like, and the other thing is, like, everything, like, people are inspired by everything. It isn't, and they, mimic the style, and they just their own twist on it. And so, to say that, oh, they use paintings or artwork or whatnot to train, yeah, everybody, all artists do that. So that's kind of, it's not like the AI is taking those people's work and saying that this is completely created by AI. It's just, like, for example, like with Van Gogh, or I'm trying to think who's this, or for example, Gertrude Jekyll, who was an English landscape designer. Okay, well, if I say, okay, I have a garden space and I want this, and this, and I would like it to be this type of style. Okay, yeah, it's gonna, her style has certain elements, and they're gonna make sure those elements in it. Now, what I actually put in my garden is going to be very different than what she would have had in her garden, but it's inspiration. And so, like, anyhow. Next thing is that, so those are the arguments that I've heard. So, I have been using, ChatGPT to design certain things for my business, logos. I have a brand book and that sort of thing. And then also becomes the question, raises the question of what does that mean for graphic designers or, for example, interior decorators. And, my personal opinion is that sometimes with these jobs, especially if it's a job, because those are artistic jobs, not everybody is artistic. Sometimes the price is high. Is the price unreasonably high? Yeah, in some cases, I think people are setting their prices they're just charging a lot of money because they can. And when you look at everything that goes into it, is it absolutely necessary? No, but that's just what some people do. People price gouge, you know? I would argue to you that if somebody is using ChatGPT or any generative AI to decorate or redecorate a bedroom, I can assure you they were not ever going to use an interior designer. So that's not money that the interior designer lost. That interior designer was never going to get that money. I've been using it because I'm decorating bedrooms and I want to try to see certain things, how it's going to look. And so that's what I've been doing with ChatGPT. I was never going to go to an interior decorator because, quite frankly, I don't need it. I've known some interior decorators, gotta be honest with you. I don't like the philosophy most interior decorators are. Their stuff is just the same. It's just boring to me. Everybody does the exact same thing. I've yet to see an interior decorator do anything that's like completely new or really like niche, like very individual. It's just the typical stuff you see in any design magazine. To me, that's lifeless. What I use, what I created with ChatGPT, yeah, that's got a lot more soul than anything I've ever seen an interior decorator do. But once again, that's me and what I like and what I put into it. And same thing with graphic design. Graphic designers are very expensive, and so, you know, when you're starting up a business, okay, I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars, you know? So one thing that was nice about ChatGPT is that, like, when I was getting estimates and that sort of thing, I could input the data and say, this is their cost, this is what they're charging me for, here's what this person is charging, and here's what I'm getting. And it was running a cost analysis and that sort of thing. And, you know, it has the ability to search the internet a lot more quickly than I can, and in a more efficient, you know, and use better search terms that I do, because I'll be quite honest, since working with it, there's certain things that it's told me, if you're looking for something, do this, that I've gotten much better results than when I was doing it on my own. And so it was like, oh yes, this is better, this is not, this is worth it, this is not, and that sort of thing. But, you know, I did ask it, and, like, you know, if I had gone to a graphic designer, like, how much would I have paid? And based upon all the stuff that we did, and, you know, all the stuff that we did with the brand book and all this other stuff, you know, it was just like, probably, I think it was like at least like $12,000, you know, depending upon where you went. Because the thing is, with what I'm doing, I think it probably does have a much higher end look. As a matter of fact, I've showed some of my friends in real life, because I didn't tell anybody I was doing this, and judging from and they were just like, wow, this is really about to elevate your business. And once again, this is my input. You know, stuff is happening because of what I've input into it. You know, ChatGPT felt like I would have had to have gone to like a boutique designer to get this, and in reality, I may have paid closer to $30,000. I don't have $30,000, okay? Like, I just, like, that's a lot of money, which I don't have. And so, yeah, you know, if I wasn't using ChatGPT, would I have ever gone to a graphic designer? No, I wouldn't have. It's just very expensive. So, it's not, the only way it's taking business is like, if I was working with a graphic designer, then I'm like, hey, never mind, I got ChatGPT. But at the end of the day, if people were never going to use you, it's not really taking money from them. Now, here's the thing. I think in reality, using ChatGPT, they could get business from it, because here's the thing. Because ChatGPT I had already gone through and did everything the way I wanted it, and I'm just giving them the files and saying, hey, I need you to convert this. Yeah, it's a lot cheap. Like, I'm spending a lot less money, you know, to get the files, this converted into the appropriate vectors. And, you know, ChatGPT couldn't do it, and I'm just not interested in trying to figure out how to do that. So I'm more than happy to pay somebody to do that. But once again, I wouldn't have gone to a graphic designer, period. So from my perspective, they're getting money that they would not have gotten if it weren't for ChatGPT. And I think that if other small businesses start using it and seeing what it can do, and then deciding that they need stuff, like need the vectors. Yeah, you know, and especially if the graphic designers, like, because basically with what I did, it's not, they're just doing the final step. It's not labor intensive. So you shouldn't be paying as much as, you know, a full project, because you're only doing a small segment of it. So, you know, more people can afford a project that's going to be, you know, $500, $600. And so I think a lot more people would find that affordable. I mean, it's like if you've ever seen the whole supply, you know, demand on a graph, with demand, the lower the cost is, the more demand you're going to get. Whereas the higher, you're going to get fewer. So, you know, you got to find that sweet spot. But, you know, if you're a business, you got to, you know, you got to pivot. And if AI makes your services more affordable for people, I think then the price definitely needs to reflect that. And because people do not want to be price gouging, especially in today's economy, because there are, I hate to speak ill of some of the vendors at my farmers market, but even with farmers markets, like there are a number of farmers that are just straight up price gouging. There's no question in my mind that I know they're price gouging. There's no reason you need to spend, you know, that kind of, like, $5 for a single tomato. Come on. It's ridiculous. So, you know, it's just, if people are fair and, you know, they make a service, they use the technologies there, I can see that they could get a larger market share than they may have originally done. So, for example, my sister was telling me about this woman who used to do nails, and getting your nails all done, you know, especially with all the gels and whatnot, can be very expensive. Like, apparently it can be like a couple $100s, which I did not know, because I don't get my fingernails done. I'm a gardener. Shoot, I don't do that. But, you know, with the economy, you know, cost of living, women are not doing that as much. And so one thing that has gotten better over time are the press-on nails that you can get. They're not them little Lee press-ons that we had, you know, when I was a kid. You know, there's some really nice ones. And so the woman pivoted her business by saying, hey, I'm going to add the service where if you have the press-on nails, you can come here and I'll basically install them for you, and it's a much lower price. And people love it, and people go and get done, because that's something that they can afford. So it's just one of those things, like, people have to pivot. The people who don't want to pivot or are not successful at pivoting, yeah, they're the ones who are going to go out of business. But for people who are like, hey, this technology is here to stay, let me get into it and we'll see what I can do, those are the people who are going to be fine. So just to give you, for those of you guys who may be watching this who are just like, oh, hey, I've never used ChatGPT, like, how did you start? Like, what did you do to get your design? Because I have yet to unveil what I'm doing for Peonies, Petals, and Posy, but I think you're going to like it. So let me drink my coffee and I'll tell you. Okay, so as a gardener, I know most of us have, you know, tried to design a garden space. And so, you know, I know one common thing I see, you know, on social media is, what program did you use? Because the programs for designing and landscaping, I mean, yeah, they're professional ones, which obviously the common person is just not going to pay for because they're super expensive. But the ones that are, I guess, free versions, or like some that are free but you can pay for certain things, they're just really not that good. I mean, you can upload pictures, but when you start putting things on it, honestly, it looks hokey. Their database of the type of, you know, trees and shrubs, once again, is very hokey. It's really hard to get a sense of, to me, what it's actually going to look like. And when I've seen people who've used it, it looks like they used a program and that it's a mock-up. It doesn't look like, okay, realistically, this is how this is going to look, which is a problem. And I have problems with spatial distances. And so for me, I like things to look as exact as possible, because in my mind, what I see as being the height or width of something and what it actually turns out to be are two completely different things. So for me, I need it to be very exact in terms of what it's going to look like. That's just the type of person. I will have a general sense, but there's a lot of times because I haven't had a program that I can use that I saw it one way and it didn't look the way I thought it was going to look because I just had no way to plan it out there. So I've used different programs, wasn't successful. I wanted, with my business, I wanted to be able to do garden, little garden plans. And I certainly did some and they looked hokey. I gotta be honest with you, they looked hokey. I mean, I use, Express. I mean, and it was very bare bones. Like, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't it definitely wasn't professional enough. And I think my mom bought one. And I remember one time when I did the class, I sent the file to the woman who was in the class, but it wasn't anything I was really proud of how it looked because it was nothing. And I'm not going to show you what it looked like. So, I'm going to take it off my website because it just looks so bad. And so, for me, when you're seeing all these companies and they have pictures of what the planter is going to look like, they have people on a whole team who are doing these things well in advance. And so for me, that's just not something I could do. And the thing is, I saw plants that I liked and I think would have looked well together, but it's just sometimes those plants were sold. Sometimes I couldn't find the plants. I just knew that I liked the look. And so trying to find a way to actually put them in a planter to be hey, I'm going to get these plants and this is how I think it's going to look, it was very difficult. So I tried using a program called Affinity Designer to remove the background from a plant. There is a way to do it. You had to practice it. It wasn't horrible. But it's just, when I was taking pictures of plants that I liked, the sun was very different. So when you put things together, it was just not a pretty result. And so I really wasn't sure what I was going to do about the whole thing. But that's one of the reasons why I stopped doing garden designs and that sort of thing. Cause I couldn't get anything to look right. So, I'm on social media, I'm on TikTok, and I've been seeing these things that people have been doing with AI, these little movies and all this other stuff. And I'm ooh, I mean, don't get me wrong. You could tell it's AI because sometimes there's just honey, that's a huge inconsistency with the plot right there. You might want to fix that, but it's fairly entertaining. But I was AI really can do a lot. I was maybe I should see what ChatGPT is about. My job, we are not allowed to use ChatGPT because there's some ethical concerns, HIPAA concerns, and that sort of thing. LexisNexis and Westlaw, which are the two tools that attorneys use, have AI that has been they're certified for HIPAA and some other things to make sure there's no hallucination. So we've now gotten permission to use that. And so I've gone through the training. So, but obviously I'm not generating pictures with that. So I really never played around with AI because I was just and not to mention, at first some of the results were super, you could tell it was AI and I'm ooh. But as time has gone on, I've been noticing things are looking better. And sometimes it is really hard. I'm wait, is this AI? Because sometimes the things are very photorealistic looking. So I went on ChatGPT and I was okay, well, you know what? Let me try doing a planter, on flower beds. And so, with the flower beds, I was having an issue at first because I wasn't giving it the prompts right. And so when it was doing a flower bed, it was really looking more like a flower arrangement. And even with some of the planters, the early planters that I was trying, I put the things in there, but it was putting it in a flower arrangement. And I'm just okay, why would you so eventually I realized, okay, once again, garbage in, garbage out. It was my inputs that were making it do that. And so I started changing what I was putting in there. And so then, And so then I got something that looked nice. I'm like, okay, whoa, this is what I was looking for. Okay, so now I'm seeing it. And then with the garden bed, I gave it some very detailed instructions. And quite frankly, with the garden plans, now that I can actually upload photographs, and because I started doing that with other things. And so with the garden plans, I'm really excited because I'm gonna plan on designing like a shape and having that shape put up there, and basically telling me the order of where I want things. And I think I'm gonna get a really a really nice look. So, and of course you can change it. Like if I wanted to go with a more like art type look instead of like a photorealistic look, I can make it be like, oh, make it look like a water painting, watercolor or oil painting, and it'll do that and that sort of thing. And so I started doing that, and I was like, okay, now I have a way to do garden design. So y'all get ready. Y'all get ready, because your girl is about to go crazy. And then I had it made a go flyer for my business, because I do farmers markets, and I was explaining, I did a really in-depth paragraph in terms of what my business was about, because I was realizing at this point, the more information you give it, the better the generative process is going to be. And so I put my old logo in there, and it gave me this flyer. The flyer was wonderful. I loved it. And I was like, wow, this is great. Because I tried making my own flyer, and it just didn't. I'm an attorney, so I write like an attorney, and that's not like, when you're doing an advertisement, that's just not how you write. And so it's hard to make that switch. And so I loved the flyer. The thing I didn't like was the logo. So anyway, I started doing plant information sheets for my booth. And so once again, I was saying I want a plant information sheet. I was putting in all the information that needed to be in there, and it was a lot. And then it was giving me something, and the first thing, it was a little contemporary. I was like, oh, could you make this vintage looking? And it did. And as a matter of fact, I'll post a picture, hopefully, of what that looks like. Actually, let me just go get one. I'll just pause it. Okay, so this is the one that I generated for Globe Thistle. And so it has the name, it has like the botanical name. And so, I was like, I gave a description, like what was great about it being pollinator friendly and all this other stuff. And, it's great for cut garden, it's great for drying. And I talked about like when to harvest it, the size of it, care and maintenance, like you divide every 4 to 5 years, and this light the soil and tolerates hot, dry conditions, and basically please wear gloves. And so this is what it came up with. I asked it to use a photorealistic image. I think I may have put the link where I got the seeds from so I could pull the picture. It did an amazing job. And then it had all these cute little icons, and I was just like, now this is a plant. This is a plant. This is a plant information sheet. Let me grab the ones I had been using. This is the old one. Now, and I grabbed some of the other ones that I generated. Like, for example, cappuccino rudbeckia. It has like a lot of the same information, but look at how this looks. And so it's just, so it's just, then I did one for zinnias. So like, for example, the luminosa pink, like I did a 3-1, so you can see all 3 colors next to each other to see what it's going to look like. Like for example, zinnias are prone to powdery mildew. So I had that in there. And I said prune to maintain airflow. You're going to have to use the fungicide on this one. And so I described it as being cut and come again, support some. So this is what I could do. And so this looks, and I'm going to change it because once again, I've redone my logo. So this is kind of like, this was me experimenting, and I love the way this came out. I just, like, when I was looking at it, I'm going, oh, And then I'm looking back at what I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I put this out there, you know, when you could do this. So it is very, it looks a lot better, you know? And yeah, I don't know. Like once I typed everything into it, and quite frankly, the longest part was just getting all the information in here and, you know, putting like the size of the blooms and that sort of thing. But like when it actually generated this, it was like a minute or so. And so for me to actually sit down and draft something that looks like this or looks like that, this would have represented hours and hours of time that I just, you know, I just didn't have. And so it did a really good job with that. And so then I was like, oh, you know, I wonder if I could like, you know, redesign some of my bedrooms. So I started doing that. And I was like, oh, I want this to look Art Nouveau. The other bedroom is Art Deco. So right now I'm doing 2 bedrooms, Art Nouveau, 1 Art Deco. And my bedroom, I'm still deciding if I'm going to go Art Nouveau, if I'm going to do more like maybe Georgian, because I was kind of feeling that a little bit too. And so, yeah, I was having a lot of fun. And then I was like, you know what? I wonder if I could tweak my logo. And so I put my logo in, said, hey, I'd like to change my logo. And it came up with some designs. It gave me 6 options, and they were so much better than what I had. It wasn't quite there, but so I was like, hey, could you make this Art Nouveau instead? And it did. And so my thing is Art Nouveau. And at first I was going to go with one option, but then I decided that one option was still a little too plain. I liked the other option because it kind of looked like a vintage label to me, like on an old perfume bottle. And so that's what I went with. And then ChatGPT made suggestions. You know, it was like, oh, I would suggest that you do a main logo, a monogram, and then a heritage seal. So I'm like, well, let me see what that looks like. And, you know, it took from because I had been, at this point, I had been designing things and that sort of thing. It was learning from what I was putting in, the prompts I was putting in, like my style. And so it came, and I was just like, oh, this is amazing. And I was like, oh, but the thing is, it's a huge change to my logo. Like when you look at my old logo compared to what's coming, it bears no resemblance. Quite frankly, like the way the old logo for my channel looks and the way the new logo looks, it's completely different. I really want, I'm going to eventually post a picture so you can, actually, you know what? I think I'm using the smaller logo for social media. I'll have to post like the big logo for my channel so you can see how detailed that logo is, because by the time I designed the logo for my YouTube channel, because I had done so much stuff with my business, it gave me 3 options, and that was really a hard decision because any of those really could have worked. Like, my sister and I talked it over for I don't know how many minutes before I decided to go with the one I did, because they were phenomenal. And you know, as more and more you know, the more I use it, when I suggest things, it's going to get to the point where it's, you know, I may have to do some major tweaking, but it's really picking up on what I like. So it did that, and I was like, oh, can you convert this to a vector so I can use it? And it was like, oh, I can't do that. You're gonna have to go to a graphic designer, which I did. And then and then it was like, but before you do that, you need a brand book. So you're gonna see me talk about it in later videos. But I remembered, it was so funny because with the amount of stuff that I've done in ChatGPT, I couldn't actually remember how I stumbled up onto what I actually did. And so if what I say in later video is contradicting what I'm telling you now, it's because I actually went back into the history of ChatGPT to see what I started with and how it progressed. Whereas in the videos, because the way I thought I got to that was redesigning my logo was very different than when I actually looked at the thing. And I was like, I've been having way too much fun on ChatGPT. But so I was like, I didn't even know what a brand book was. So it was like, it has this many chapters, and I'm going, what? So then when we started doing it and I started going through it, And it was explaining, because every step of the process, it's explaining why it's doing what it's doing. And I was sitting there going, you know what? I never thought about places like Longwood or Terrain, or even that one place that closed down, Cordless Farm. I was like, oh, you know what? It's like, because like I felt like with Cordless Farm the most, because it seems like all the pictures, all the social media was, the pictures were taken in a certain way, the video was done in a certain way. And there's a section in the brand book about photography and that sort of thing. And I was like, oh, okay. It was all making sense. And I was like, okay, this is how you get that consistency, because it's things like the fonts, the colors, like, because it has like this, it's the hexa, what's it called? It's like the colors, but it's got like it's six, it's like 6 digits, and it's like alphanumeric code for each of the, of the colors. And then it was like explaining things like, don't separate these elements, like don't ever do the logo this way. And if I ever want to trademark something, obviously that's what you're going to do. And so I was sitting there going like, so I realized, I was like, oh wow, I was definitely thinking way too small here. Way too small. And so, oh, and I forgot, another thing I had also asked it to do was to redesign my farmer's market booth. So I got some great stuff, but now that I've got a brand, oh my gosh, it looks even better. And I was like sending pictures, showed pictures to my friends, and they were just like, oh my gosh. The one vendor who's at the farmer's market was like, this is going to be such an elevation. I'm like, I know, right? So I'm really excited. So, and then that's how I got the designer. And then the nice thing about ChatGPT is that when it gives you a picture, like you can, if there's certain elements you like, you'd be like, okay, what's this called? Like, so for example, when I was decorating my study, it had these shades and I really liked them. I'm like, hey, by the way, where would I get these shades? So it's like, this is the search terms that you use, and I actually found them on Amazon. And so same thing with the rug. Oh, it's this type of rug. It's this type of design. Google this, Google that. Also look for like these search terms. And so, it was very helpful. And so like with some of the things in the booth to like organize and decorate, it was like, okay, it gave me websites, and I was like, okay, even in terms of banners and that sort of thing, it was giving me suggestions. Here's where you can get certain things done. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful, because that's the hardest thing, is finding sources. And it did it so quickly. And because I had search terms, I started pulling up so much more useful information than I had been in the past. And so then I was just like, I'd always kind of wanted some like logoed pottery or even my own designs. And I had been looking for like getting pottery wholesale and that sort of thing. And so once again, ChatGPT helped me, because I have found a bigger company, which I'm going to talk about in later videos, but I did find a artist in Vermont who does custom orders, because that was a very difficult thing to find. And she was very helpful. She was like, hey, send me what you have. If I can't do it, I'll recommend you to somebody who can do it. And that's so helpful, because I did reach out to a local place, and she was like, I don't. And she was like, and I'm so sorry. She goes, I don't even know who does, so I can send you that person. But this person, we've worked on some things. I've showed her what I've wanted. I've got the prices, so I'm now deciding how much of what I'm going to do. I did show some of the pieces to some friends, and they were just like, I would buy that. Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to lie to you. The pieces are going to be expensive, because these are actually handmade. So, a lot of the things when people are saying like handmade or handcrafted, that doesn't literally mean from start to finish. They're with pots, like they can make molds, and there's a way. So when they're so even something can be handcrafted, they may only be putting one piece around it, and that's considered handcrafted or handmade because their hands are touching it, but their humans are not necessarily doing it from start to finish. So, like if you go into Terrain, their terracotta is more on the pricey side. Once again, those are molds, but they're not literally handmade pieces. And so these pieces are actually handmade. She's making each individual one, so they are going to be a lot more expensive than than you're typically going to see. But on the upside, I actually designed the pottery. So basically, with the whole that, like, I came up with the design and I emailed her the render. This is what it's supposed to look like. And so it's, I don't know how to do pottery, honey. I don't have time to do it, but it's really nice to actually design something and have somebody bring it to life. So this is something that I specifically designed, and she's making what I designed. And in terms of designing, a couple of the pieces are more ornate. One is a little bit more simplistic for right now, because I only did a logo. I didn't do the other intricate stuff on it because I'm trying to keep the price a little bit more manageable. There's only so much I can do because it's more expensive. But I saw a number of pots and I like parts and pieces of the pots. And I'm like, okay, I want a pot with this shape. I want this, and this on it. And so that's how I got the design. I have designed some other like full lines, but those are the type of things that I'm going to contact a bigger manufacturing company so they can actually make a mold, because it's going to be a lot cheaper than, because if it's handmade, I can tell you right now, nobody is ever going to buy any of those pots because they're going to be like, $700, $800 probably just to make, because how the detail that's in them. So when you have things that are detailed, you're going to need, you usually do that by a mold. So I'm really excited because, the vision, like I definitely had a vision for where I wanted my business to go, but it was how to get there, because it's hard to find resources. And so what was nice about ChatGPT, it was that everything was there. I could ask questions, get responses. And yeah, I still had to do work because I still had to go to websites and verify, because some of the websites it gave me, sometimes they no longer did the things that ChatGPT was telling me that it did. So I still have to do my due diligence, but it's just that right now I see, like, I have a vision. I know where I want, now my vision is kind of like on paper, and I have a definable way to get to where I'm looking to go. And am I going to tweak it? Absolutely. Because one of the things with my booth with the crates is I'm going with that old world look. I'm using wine crates, which I got from local wine stores. Around here, somebody sells them for like $3, 10 for 3, 3 for 10. And some of the places will just give them away. And so I stained them. I'm staining them all the same color, but because of the wood in the crates, they're not all looking the same. So it's a very nice look. And so it's definitely going to transform how my booth is looking. So, and the style with the brand book, even when I go and, finally get my farm and that sort of thing, and I'm setting things up, this style, even from my farmer's market to the thing, like it's still going to carry over. So it's just consistency. So, even if you were to show up on my farm, because my farm is not going to be called Peonies, Petals, and Posies, like when I get a place, I'm going to name my place just like I did. I named my house, but it's probably gonna be like Peonies, Petals, and Posies at, this location. But, you're going to be able to tell, oh yeah, this is definitely the same company. So it's a very timeless look. And so it's definitely with what I'm looking to do, that's where I'm, looking to go. And so now the other thing I just have to decide on is in terms of clothing, because I'm thinking in keeping with that booth, like I love my Duluth coveralls, and for Vintage Gardener, obviously I'm going to be wearing them because like that's my, just my personal gardening channel. But for the booth, I think I'm going to get an apron with my logo like embroidered on it, and so that sort of thing. So yeah, so be ready for the glow up, y'all. So anyway, just realized this video is extraordinarily long. So anyway, I know some of you guys may appreciate what I said. I know some people may disagree. Some people may not like that I decided to wade into the controversy because it's a gardening channel. But, you know, part of my gardening is I'm starting a business. And so, you know, parts of the things I'm doing for my business do make it onto the channel. And so you're probably going to, and the thing is, if you're with my business, I have been referring people to my YouTube channel because especially when I'm doing certain techniques, which I haven't been doing because I've been so busy, but like with espalier and those other things, I have a YouTube channel for that. Like, you know, they'll consult the videos. So, you know, you're going to, you know, they're going to see certain things, like even in terms of like my, the cover photos for YouTube are going to change. But, you know, I know some people feel a certain way, and, you know, people may feel like, well, I can't support you because you're doing, you know, using this. I'm just giving you my opinion, and maybe I don't change your mind, but maybe I gave you something else to think about. And maybe, you know, and if, you know, maybe you feel like now, oh, I was being unreasonable, or I didn't think about it that way. That's all I'm here to do. So anyway, guys, I gotta go because I think today I have, my hip is flaring up. So I think today I'm probably just going to stay inside and clean. I may go search for some more wine crates because I don't really know how many I'm going to need. But the other thing I was thinking is with these wine crates though, that like, I'm like, you know what? I need to reorganize my kitchen cabinets. I was like, and this would be perfect to just like have it sitting in here and put your like your flour and sugar and all that kind of stuff on there. So, you know. So anyway, I'm going to sign off for this video. If you guys have any questions about anything, let me know. Obviously, you guys know I'm on Instagram. So if you have any questions, like for example, if you got a business and you're thinking about using ChatGPT and you want more details, like please message away. I have no problems whatsoever answering questions. So anyway, guys, I will talk to you later.